Playboy, you made that beat.
All right, back at it again. Super Sports Media. I'm Richard DeLeon. With me today is my partner,
Eric Talley, or E Talley, as I like to be called.
E-Tally. E-Tally. And today we have a very special guest, a retired SAPD, and probably the most important job that he had is being a father of one Frank Harris, Mr. Darrell Harris. Welcome to our show.
Welcome. Thank you. Actually, I retired from the Bexar County District Attorney's Office.
The Bexar County District
That's okay.
Attorney.
It's still law enforcement. I don't get offended, but somebody else might get offended. So
I'm going to get with Andre then, but that's an important job too, but still not as important as being a dad. The most important job we have is being a father, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's kick it off. I mean, from a as Frank's dad, from a parent perspective, can you talk a little bit about the commitment that it takes from not only the athlete? I want you to talk about that part because you saw him grow, but also from the parent perspective, what kind of commitment does it take for somebody that wants to play Division I sports?
It's really a big commitment, and it really helps when you have family that's involved in it. You know, Frank was blessed to have a mom and dad and siblings and friends and everybody that was involved with his journey.
Right. And as far as the commitment on his end, like what was his schedule like coming up as a middle school, high school player? What was his schedule like to get ready for that?
Well, Frank was actually, I don't know if y'all know this, but Frank was actually like Frank played football, basketball, and he ran track.
Okay.
And it became a point where we said, as parents, like, Frank, you're gonna have to shut something down because we're running raggedy trying to get to all of these practices and things like that, and these events. So you're gonna have to figure out which one that you want to do.
Okay. And he chose the right one, it seems.
Yeah, he did. I'm a basketball person, so I want him to play basketball. Plus, I think it would have been less torturous on his body. But at the end of the day, that was his decision, and we rode with it. And we love football. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to see him out there dunking on somebody.
Right. Well, we talk about it every show that we love basketball as well, but football is king here in Texas.
Oh yeah,
and I think football, and I think Eric's heard me say this a few times. I think Frank Harris is the mayor of San Antonio sports because for the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, he kind of took the city and he made it his own, and everybody just got behind him and supported him, and he brought that program. Him, and of course he's part of a team, but he's like the mayor of San Antonio sports, in my opinion. So yeah, so he chose right.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I want to elaborate on that what you just said, because Frank comes from a family of 4, correct? With three
boys and 1 girl.
And then, and the only reason I'm trying to do this, I'm just trying to elaborate on some of the stuff that we're talking about, just kind of let people in a little bit more. And you told me previous conversations that Frank, when he did play basketball, he was trained by, shout out to Coach Dunkley in SA Rhythm, correct?
Oh, yeah.
In Double A?
Yeah, oh, yeah, Double A and Coach Dunk. Like you said in our previous conversation, what I was telling you was that while I was coaching him, I saw we started having a little conflict. And to me, it was more important to turn over the reins to somebody that I felt had the same kind of mindset that I did, so he could just take him from there and just keep growing. Sometimes parents can't do that, and it was important for me to have him still continue to play the sport he loved, but at the same time, for me to step back and just be a parent.
So let's stay here a little bit. We want to kind of talk about the parent aspect. And again, I didn't have this question prepared, but as I'm hearing, I just want to elaborate on some of these things. And we talked a little bit about, but can you share with the audience of how important it is to make that decision as a dad, the alpha dog, the man of the household, to say, hey, you know what? It's time for me to stop coaching my son and allow someone else to coach him, to allow him to spread his wings a little bit, because I hear so many times that kids they play on the court or the field, and I'm coaching them hard, and then I bring that same energy in the car, the ride home, and then at home, as far as chores and things like that. So can you explain that big step that you made when you just said, hey, I'm not going to do it anymore?
Well, and I'm not trying to be ugly in what I'm going to say, but there's not a lot of kids that are Shedeur Sanders. They get to have the dad from Little League all the way to college. So what was important to me was the fact that I need to prepare him for life. Winning a football game, winning championships, him performing well, that's all fine and dandy. But I didn't want my son to hate me because I wasn't man enough to step back and see the conflict that it was causing between us. And it wasn't bad conflict. It just was, when they get to be 12 and 13, 14, they start smelling themselves and they feel like you don't know anything. And so it was getting to that point, and it didn't cause any, hardship or any kind of bad problem between us. But I felt like I had to look in the mirror and step back from it.
In my last part, and I'll pass it on to Richard. Do you feel as though the position you held, you ran your the football league for 10 years, the job, the position you held, as far as being part of the city in Barrett County, do you think, or do you believe any of that had any play to your decision to really help you? Like, you know what, I'm trying to do all these things. Let me find someone else to help me guide my son to being great.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did when I coached for 10 years, but I only ran the organization for, I think it was about 5 years. And I might be wrong, maybe one more or less. But one of the things that I did, because I had been in it so long, was, again, I took a step back. I had been in organizations where guys would try to be the head coach. They would try to run the organization, and they would try to conduct business all in one aspect. And so because of that, I said to myself, I got to take a step back. So I didn't even coach when Frank was playing, when I was the president of the organization, because I wanted everything that he did to be, his own merit. I didn't ask coaches about who's starting, why didn't you put him at this position? Why did you take him out? I had nothing to do with that, because again, the end result is what he does in the future. And I didn't want to hamper that by putting a thumb on what happens to him in Little League. Basically, like we all know, it's daddy ball. I didn't want to be a part of that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Go ahead, Richard.
Right. No, and that's the thing. I mean, the sports are supposed to define who these boys and girls become as adults. It teaches adversity and all that, so it's very important to allow them to spread their wings without us constantly on top of them. I've always believed that as well. So
I've seen a lot of kids ruined because of how daddy was, a decent athlete in high school or college, and then they're trying to, drill this kind of stuff into their kids, and it really, to me, I've seen a lot of kids that were ruined because of that.
Right, definitely. And we're going to move on, I guess, now to the college ranks here. We're talking to our kids about college athletics because there are a lot of kids that they're going to play at the next level. And I want to look at this from the standpoint of even being in high school with the transfer portal now in full effect. I mean, I was watching games the last couple of weeks on TV, and every time you change the channel, they're talking about a player and they talked about where he played last year.
Previously, yes, exactly.
I mean, it's like free agency now. And what that does is squeezing opportunities for high schoolers as well. But as far as the transfer portal and NILs and stuff like that, as a parent, how do you think that's changing the game of college football? And what are some things that we could talk to our kids about when we're talking about that? And if you can elaborate on that.
I like the concept of the transfer portal, but the problem is that a lot of times people are greedy. And whether it be the coach trying to give a player a bunch of money, or the player demanding a bunch of money, or the player's families demanding a bunch of money. Frank had a very generous opportunity to go to a Power 5 university for a large amount of money. And grandma always said all money ain't good money. And so because of that, we talked about it and we discussed it, and plus he's a mama's boy, so mama wasn't gonna let him stress that far away from him. So that was the other thing too. But I think too many of these kids and these parents get caught up in money and the school, and the facilities and the uniforms and all that. The most important thing should be the kids' education primarily. If you a lot of kids don't understand when they enter that portal, they can lose credit. And when they lose credits, you're starting back over from ground zero. And when you start back over from ground zero, the possibility of you getting an education or getting a degree are set back because you lost so many credits transferring from this university to that university. And I think that's one thing that a lot of parents don't focus in on, and a lot of kids don't focus in on. And the other thing with the transfer for the portal is that a lot of times you see these kids go into the portal and they didn't even play it down at the school that they're at, but they want to go to another university. And they kind of get their feelings hurt because somebody picks them up, but then they don't get to play at the other school.
Right. No, I see that. I see that all the time. And I'll just, kind of just go along, with that line of thinking. As far as the transfer portal, do you believe, because I've had a lot of conversations with guys that played in yesteryear, that when the transfer portal and NILs and all that did not exist, how much do you feel like college football is almost turned into like a semi-pro now, where you get, I mean, it takes that amateur athletics kind of out of the fold a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, to me, one of the downside is now you and this is just my view of looking what I see, is to me, you're getting these kids that are making a lot of money, and some of these kids are making more money than the coaches. And so some of these kids, in my opinion, are not respecting the coaches. And to me, that's one of the reasons I ran a coach like Nick Saban off. And then too, these kids know that if they don't like a certain coach, they can go play for a different
one. Right. And I'll turn it over. I'll turn it over to Eric now. Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned academics, we're gonna drop down on my list of questions and kind of talk about that part of that. And what were some of the key strategies you and your family would use to help Frank balance the demands of being a student athlete in college and in high school? Because obviously high school transfers over to college to where you get so much freedom. Well, actually, you really don't get a lot of freedom because you're working so hard at your craft of the sport you're playing. You don't have all the time that a lot of people think you do. So can you kind of let us know, let us know what did you and his mom do to help making sure that balance was there?
And let's shout out Clemens High School because he's Frank's a local young man from here in
Yes, he
San
is.
Antonio,
Yeah.
from the
Yes,
San
he is.
Antonio area. So let's shout out Clemens High School for that.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yes, sir.
one of a family story that kind of helped out was my oldest son was playing football, and we always told him the importance of grades. And so I guess he didn't take us serious, and so he got a bad progress report. So at the time, the braids were coming out, and we went and cut it. His head was closer than mine, and when I got through with him, and we took him off the football team. And the head coach came to us and said, "Hey, Mr. Harris, can you please leave him on the team?" I said, "No, coach. We told him from the beginning, your primary focus is academics, and then the sport is secondary." And he didn't take us serious, so I'm gonna show him how serious we are. And we took him off the football team. And when Frank and Darrell Jr. were coming along, my oldest son would always tell them that story. And so they knew that mom and dad weren't playing when it came to academics.
So what's the age difference between Darrell Jr. and Frank?
Darrell Jr. and Frank are almost 2 years older.
Okay.
2 years apart. We've got a blended family, so the other two kids they're about 9 and 10 years difference.
Okay.
So in essence, it was really helpful for my wife and I because there was things that they would try to do, and older kids would be like, "No, mom and daddy not going to let you do that." So it was real helpful for us with the older kids being around, and also too, if we wanted to break away, we had babysitters. So
Okay. So real quick, in reference to the you hold them to a standard. How important do you think the success, because this is a two-part, to add it on to the first part of that, how do you think, like looking at Frank's success he had, how important was that way you held him to that standard to help him be successful to today?
I think it was important. And I think in today's society or today's culture, everybody wants to be their child's friend. And they want to be liked by them, and they want to, they don't want the kids to get mad at them and that kind of stuff. I told every single one of my boys that when you get grown, when you have a special occasion, we can have a drink and smoke a cigar. Until then, I'm not your friend. I'm here to make you a productive citizen in life.
I really like that. I like to hear that. That's so important because, again, to me, his success playing in the D1 college and the success he had the last 3 years, it just shows right there of what he needed to do. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Go ahead, Rich.
Good upbringing right there, and that's I think today, in today's, you see that a lot. You see those parents that want to be their kids' friends, and we're not their friends. I mean, if they don't get their feelings hurt a little bit. If they don't get their feelings hurt a little bit, and if we don't make them upset and angry, sometimes we're not doing our job as parents. I totally agree with that. Well, we'll keep talking about Frank, and then we're going to get on to some other stuff. But as far as Frank, we talked about him being a multi-sport athlete, and then he kind of gravitated to football. And you said you might have wanted him to play basketball, maybe so it could be easier on his body. He did have some injuries when he got up to the UTSA, I think in 2018, I think he missed the season with a knee injury. How difficult is that on the athlete and on the family with the struggles and the rehabbing and all that, and keeping them mentally in the right place? Because it's hard when you can't do what you love to do, and now you got to focus on getting your body straight. How difficult was that? Can you take us through that process a little bit?
Well, he actually hurt his knee in high school.
Okay.
It was the 10th game of the season against Judson.
Okay.
And it was a freak accident. When we first saw it, it looked like the kid hit him out of bounds. But when we went back and watched the video, we actually saw that he was kind of limping, and I guess it popped before he actually got to the sideline because he did he juke move on him and he hit the sideline and that's when the pain set in. But that kind of goes to another point with the colleges. We every school that we went to, my wife had a tablet, and she wrote that we had the exact same questions. And I'm gonna shout out somebody real quickly before I continue. Yale Vanoy was Frank's quarterback coach when he was in high school, and Yale Vanoy gave us the advice to write down questions that you wanted to ask college coaches. We had a tablet for every school that Frank was seriously considering. One of the questions was how is he going to be treated if he gets hurt? Will he lose his scholarship? Because we saw an incident where a kid lost his scholarship, because of an injury. And, I was telling Frank, I pointed it out to him and I said, you don't want that to be you. And one of the other things we told him was you need to look at a university and say to yourself, can I be here for 5 years? And so we asked the coaches, will you honor his scholarship offer if he gets injured? Coach Wilson, Frank Wilson, who's at LSU again, said he would. And he was a man of his word. And that was one of the things that Frank admired, was that he honored his word and UTSA honored their word when he got injured.
Because that could be devastating to a kid to lose out on that education just because they got an injury. And not a lot of people know this. Well, I guess the diehard fans will know this, but Frank, coming back for his last season, he was kind of banged up coming into his last season at UTSA, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad. It got kind of ugly. He had a knee cleaned up. It was I think it was MLK Day in 23, I believe it was. And he had his knee cleaned up, and he wound up getting sepsis in his knee. And not a lot of people knew about that. And they brought in cancer doctors, and they started talking about he could possibly lose his leg. And at that point, I could care less about football. I was more concerned about my son,
right? And
how if something actually happened to him, how it would affect him mentally going forward. Because at that point, again, I didn't care about football. Luckily, he made it through there. They brought in a new team doctor. He was able to clean it up and get it going. And then when we were playing Texas State, he hurt his toe or the bottom of his foot. And originally they labeled it as turf toe. And as he rehabbed and kept going, it kept bothering him. So then it flared up again right before the bowl game. And, it was crazy because I had people that I hadn't talked to in years. Is Frank going to play? Frank going to play? Frank going to play? Reporters were calling me, and I actually didn't know. And it was funny because my wife said, baby, if my baby come out that tunnel, I'm going to cry. And, in uniform that was, not just out the tunnel. And he wound up not playing that game. And so later we went and had it done. And what he actually did was the bottom of his foot where the toe bends upward, he ruptured and ripped that tendon off of his toe. So as far as football goes, I think that was it, for him.
Wow.
So let's stick here real quick. I was going to go another route, but I want to stick. This is interesting. How as a parent, do you guys, football parents, deal with some of these injuries? Like what's the psyche like? What advice would you give a parent to where though And again, obviously he didn't start getting hurt until he started moving up, and as far as the play, high school, college, and so on. What's some of the things that go through your head? Like you just said, hey man, I don't care about him playing anymore. I'm just making sure he's healthy. So can you
Yeah.
give a parent some advice or some ways to deal with certain things? Because again, I know the psyche and the athlete of not doing what they love to do can be so depressing.
Oh
So
yeah.
can we
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
And we just made sure we stayed in his ear. We made sure we checked on him because he wasn't living with us, at the time. Or he still doesn't live with us, but he had moved out, and you know, injuries in football, particularly, is not if they're going to happen; it's when they're going to happen and how bad they are. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. They don't think that these athletes can get injured. They will get injured. It's just how bad it is and exactly what kind of injury it is. Is it an injury that they can recover from and continue on? And that was the thing that we looked at. Um, but the biggest thing was we wanted to make sure that he didn't feel like he was forgotten about because he wasn't playing football from us as a family. Now, there were some fans that, and I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Rowdy Sideliners, and
Mm-hmm.
we became very good friends with that group right there just because when Frank was injured, they would always ask about Frank and how he was doing, like mentally, and how they didn't say want to know when he was coming back or how quick he was coming back or if he would play the same year. They were genuinely concerned about him as an individual, and we really respected that. And and so because of that, we're really good friends with that group. But that's the thing is we tried to keep him motivated and tried to make sure he didn't get to too low of a point to where really bad depression set in on him.
Well, that's one thing I will say about San Antonio. This is one of the reasons that I made San Antonio home once I got here. Man, you guys love your people. I'm talking about your athletes and just your neighborhoods. Man, San Antonio is one big city of love. Being from Philadelphia, where one of our cliche sayings is brotherly love. There's no love like San Antonio love, man. I promise you. I've been here for the last 9 years, it's going on year 10 for me. And I promise you, I've been all over the world. I can really say that I've been all over the world on a few continents. And I've never seen love the way San Antonio loves. That's one of the reasons I stay here. So I can definitely understand how that community, how the UTSA community got behind Frank, and then the actual fans like Richard, and just man, I can see it. I can see it. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Richard?
Yep. Um, and it sounds like Frank Wilson was very instrumental in Frank coming to UTSA or staying here to play at UTSA. And I think when we're talking about our kids, when they go to college, we want to make sure that they're in the best hands possible with the coaches that they're going to go to. We want to make sure that they're the right role models and so on and so forth. Can you speak on the Frank Wilson years and the Jeff Traylor years and how they were able to be an extension of you at the school, if that was the case?
Well, again, we told Frank from the beginning, you need to figure out a place where you can stay for the 5 years. And when Frank Wilson was here, um, the program, we never got it off his feet to get to a winning program. So he was let go. Coach Traylor comes in, and Frank was real skeptical about Coach Traylor.
Mm-hmm.
I was too, because I'd never heard of the guy. I'd never heard of him. I'd heard his name the first time before they hired Wilson, but I had never heard of him. And so my wife and I went to the press conference that they had at the Alamo Dome, and we listened to him talk, and we were fired up. And so we felt that he was going to really do what needed to be done to turn the program around. and he's done it, and he's a man of his word, and we got a lot of respect for him, and we got a lot of admiration for that whole UTSA program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm just going to piggyback on that one, and we'll transition here. But now that Frank's kind of concluded his playing career, it must get quiet for you guys now, right? I mean, you're probably used to your kids playing sports all the way through. How are you dealing with post-football life? How are you dealing with it?
Well, I'm sure you can hear my grandbaby in the background. So that's we've been doing a lot of that, watching the grandbaby, which we love because the oldest son, he was in the Navy, so we missed the baby years of the other two. So we're really enjoying having the grandbaby around. But that's what we do. I do woodworking as a retired hobby. I'll give y'all a link to my Facebook page.
Okay.
And y'all can check out some of the stuff that I do. My wife does travel agent. She's a travel agent, and we travel and spend our time. One of the things I told my wife when Frank graduated from college, I told my wife, I said, this is about us. We've had about 27 years of everything was about the kids. Now it's going to be about us. We're going to do what we want to do when we want to do it, and they need to work their way into our lives, not us working around their lives.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, real quick, we're going to transition a little bit, but it's not going to go too far off because my question has to deal with coaching, right? You said you coached, you ran an organization for a while. You also coached your son. You watched him grow up the those rankings from Pee Wee to middle school to high school, all the way to college. What advice, or what are some of the things that your grandkids decide to play either basketball or football? What would you give them now? Skills, not skill set, but just little nuggets to help them deal with playing that sport later on when that sport doesn't love you back. Because there's times, and I think in kids' life where that sport they feel like doesn't love them the way they love the sport. So what advice would you give that coach or in that player in those kids to be successful?
Kind of like with Frank. I told Frank one day this song and dance is going to end, and you need to be respected and you need to be remembered as a person and as an individual. And I'll never forget we went to a opening for a professional athlete's restaurant, and a professional athlete came up, and Frank fell in love. He knew who he was, and he went up and he tried to hug him, and he pushed him off. And I told Frank, I said, "You remember how that felt?" And then when Judson High School was going to the state championship, and all those guys embraced him, and I said, "Remember how that felt?" And I would tell him, when those kids or those people come up and want a little bit of your time, unless you just got something that's urgent that you can't, give them a little piece of your time, because you don't know how much impact that's going to have on them in the long run. And they always say, never meet your hero. And I always try to tell Frank, make sure that people see the person that you are off of the field as well as on the field, because off the field will carry you a lot further and a lot longer than on the field.
That is so true. I had a good friend of mine. That was his exact same words when we used to hang out. We'd be downtown San Antonio and people want to get pictures with him. There's not one time that he did not give a picture or a handshake or just interact with that person. So I think that's really, really great advice to give whoever, coming from the city, if they can make the next level. That's awesome. That's awesome words. I love the humility right there. Go ahead, Richard.
And I'll say, Frank's smile is contagious. It reminds me of Magic Johnson's smile. I mean, just a genuine. He's just got a smile from ear to ear, just grin. I love it. I love the personality because he is what San Antonio is all about. Well, how do you feel about UTSA football? The current state of UTSA football. I mean, they had a couple tough games here, and I know Coach Traylor was talking about recently here. He was talking about how he likes the way that they've grown from the loss at Texas State to the loss at UT. He kind of feels good that they're going the right direction. And I hate to tell you guys, but the team that's coming in this weekend, they just scored 70 points last week. So how do you feel about the state of UTSA football?
Well, it's hard, and kind of jump from sport to sport. When the Spurs lost Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, people expected Popovich to do the exact same things. You can't do those exact same things because you don't have that nucleus. And them guys played together for so long that it was almost like second nature. With this class that just graduated, you lost Cephas, you lost Rashard Wisdom, you lost Frank, and you lost other players. Those kids have been together for so long, and they almost knew what each other were going to do. So I think what's going to happen primarily this year, maybe even next year, they're going to have some growing pains. The problem that I hate and that bothers me is these fair weather fans.
Yeah.
You lose a game or you don't have a good season and everybody's gone. And nobody can beat Alabama every year and just keep being at the top. It's not going to happen. Right. So I even saw the same thing with when Frank was playing. We'd lose a game here or lose a game that they thought we should win, and then everybody was just in an uproar. And everybody wanted this person fired, this person transferred, this one to take this job, and all that kind of stuff. And it was but that's the biggest thing is I think that we're going to have some growing pains when you lose athletes like those three.
Oh yeah, and the fair weather fans they really bug me because I mean, let's face it, if everybody could play, if it was easy, everybody would play college football. It's not. It's not.
Yeah, and the problem that when I have with the fair weather fans is probably some of them probably never even played checkers, and they got the most comments on what should happen and what shouldn't happen, and that's the part that bothers me is if Robert Griffin III or Michael Vick gave some kind of commentary by Frank, I would take that to heart a lot better than some of these guys that have never ever played a sport in their whole entire life.
The guys that sit in front of their TV with cheese whiz running down their chin, and they're the ones telling him how he should play quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a dad, I got to know and hear and find out a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people really didn't know. And as a parent, in respect to the team and respect to my son, I kept my mouth shut about those kind of things. But there was a lot of things that people would say and people really didn't know what was really going on.
Right. Yeah, I bet. I mean, there's a lot of buzz right now that UTSA could be heading to the Pac-12. That's been the news. Like it's all around Twitter and all, or it's called X now. It's not Twitter. But I don't know what your thoughts are about that. We'll get to your thoughts. My thoughts is I think we need to stay put for a little bit because as you go up in weight class, you need more depth, you need more size, so what are your thoughts about the Pac-12?
I agree with you too. And then this is another thing too, from a parent aspect. The one thing that was really good when we were in Conference USA and people hated Conference USA and they talked about it really bad and they talked about the media coverage and all that kind of stuff. But as a parent, the places that you had to travel to were a lot closer than what we're getting in the AAC. And it's going to be even worse when you get into the Pac-12. And you're going to have parents that don't have the capability of seeing these kids, their child play, other than seeing it on Sports Center or whatever. Luckily for my wife and I, and I don't mean this literally, but we begged, borrowed, and stole to make sure we only missed one football game in Frank's college career, and that was against BYU. And the only reason why we missed that one was because they weren't allowing fans because of COVID. But other than that, and all of those parents, everybody's parent can't afford or don't have the opportunities to go to those kind of things, and it'll get even worse if we're in the Pac-12. But that's a decision that Lisa Campos, Coach Traylor, and all of them have to make. I can't make that decision for them.
Right. I, for one, would rather them try to figure out a way to get to the Big 12. But even that's a big step up. I mean, like I said, It takes a while for you to be able to get the personnel to play at the bigger conferences. I mean, you can see it. It doesn't show up like with Frank and Joshua Cephas, where it shows up is in the trenches. And the depth, these teams, they can roll out instead of just 5 offensive linemen, they got 10 offensive linemen that are going to play on Sundays. and now we don't. We get one injury and it kind of hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's mentioning Alabama and Georgia right now when he said that. I didn't want to call them names. School-wise. But, because they roll them out like that. Alabama has, 8 guys all every year. That's about 4 or 5 star. Now Georgia's following the blueprint. Now Texas is following the blueprint. So, yeah. And let me ask you a question real quick in reference to that, since you kind of talked about this a little bit. You don't got to divulge any information. You can just kind of, if it's over your level, then I totally understand. How's the NIL for UTSA? Where though, like UT, they're giving all their players Lamborghinis and things like that. Is that something that we can ever compete with? Because to play Pac-12 or Big 12 or anything like that, you need those guys. These guys that you got some NIL money to throw around.
Yeah, I don't financially wise, I don't think that the UTSA will be able to touch a lot of these schools. But again, like I said earlier, all money isn't good money. So like Granny used to tell me all the time. But and I think that the kids, the parents, they need to be an influence, and the coaches as well. If you leave and go to another school, what is the likelihood of you playing at this big school? Because I've seen players that have went to elite Power 5 school. Their college career, if you look up their stats, they got 10 plays. Well, to me, I'm not sending. My child wants to go play college football. So if he's going to the school, he's going there with the anticipation of getting on the field and making an impact. And if you want to just go out there just to put your name on a roster and say you play for this big university, and you won a champ, you get a ring, then that's the bad part about it.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit. What study habits did you use to help Frank navigate from middle school all the way up to college? I saw something on TikTok that was really interesting. Somebody showed a day in the life of a kid, like a 12-year-old, and showed them all these great study habits. They had their schedule all the way from 6 o'clock in the morning all the way to 9. And it was interesting. Is that something that you had with Frank, to where though, hey, you had him on a strict diet regimen to make sure that you checked all the blocks?
No, we've always tried to give our kids leverage and give them a little bit of freedom. And with that freedom, you got boundaries. And if you're not respecting the boundaries, then you're gonna have to pay. And so we would allow, like when they got to high school, we would tell them, okay, you don't have to go to bed at 9 o'clock, but you're going to get up in the morning and you're going to go to school. And we're not going to have any excuses, and we're not going to have anything like that. You're going to go to school. And so I think giving them a little bit of leverage was one of the ways to help prepare them for, for college and for life. And um, and then just, not backing down from your rules and regulations. And, because some of these parents, they start off, they start off with certain rules and regulations. Their son becomes a star athlete or they do well, and then all of a sudden they got a whole different set of rules. And we had the same rules from start to finish with Frank and all the other children as well. So that education was the most important thing, primarily from start. Period.
Okay. Okay. All right, Rich.
Now, they are student athletes. Student comes first.
Yeah.
Student comes first. All right. Well, let's talk some college football. We got early season surprises. What's caught your eye so far in this football season, this college football season? I know it's early, but anything catch your eye? And who are your favorites for the college football playoff?
I really, to be honest with you, I really don't follow college football like I used to. And one of the biggest reasons why is the transfer, this portal. And you start liking a team, and then the next thing you know, this kid is gone. He's gone to another school. They fire coaches 2 or 3 games into the season, so it's kind of hard, to really follow it like you could before.
Right.
But I really, and now Texas did surprise me because I wouldn't expected them to start off as strong as they have. But being gone with either going to or from Frank's games, we really missed a lot of college football, So so I don't really have anybody that I'm really following. But again, the way Texas started off really surprised me.
I agree, and I'll double down on what you said about the whole day. Even as a tailgater and going to the games, you get there to get to the stadium.
Yeah,
you want to tailgate, you want to go to the game, and then to get home, you've missed the entire Saturday. You're there at the dome, and by the time you get home, you're watching Pac-12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You're watching Pac-12, but I do agree with you about Texas. Texas has really surprised me. I knew they'd be good, but they're number 1 right now, and I think they have a chance to make some noise this year. I guess, do you watch NFL? Do you watch any NFL football?
Oh yeah.
Who's your favorite NFL team, sir?
Oh, the Cowboys, man.
All right. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan. Yeah.
Well, I am too. Mr. Talley over here, he's an Eagles fan, so it's kind of hard for me to be good friends with him, but I make it work.
What'd you say, the Beagles? I got a buddy of mine. Hey, I got a good friend of mine that's an Eagles fan, and I give it to him every chance that I get. And
that's fine.
So the other night I texted him. I watched the Cowboys game. They lost, and then they played next. And I said, man, my Cowboys lost, man. Hopefully y'all will win. And they had already lost.
Man, I got to tell you.
Well, the great part, we can both drop all of our first initials. There's no defense in Dallas right now, so y'all the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
And then we call us the Beagles, because man, Eagles, whatever you want to call us, right now there's no defense with us either. We just gave that game away.
Yeah.
So we're all. I think we're made for each other to be we're in a perfect conference. We're those 3 teams tied for first place: the Commanders, Dallas, and the Eagles. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah. Well,
it's still early. It's still early.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up. We're all 3 of us right now. We're going to do So I got 6 games that we're going to pick, and I know you don't follow college football, but we'll do our best. We got 6 games we're going to pick, and we'll send the results to y'all after this weekend. I'll start off with the NFL. Got the Eagles at the Saints.
Oh, you want to know who I'll pick?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Pick some games here.
The Eagles and the Saints. I got the Saints.
You got the Saints?
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I can't on national television or I can't say anything but now. If we got money on it, I'm going with the Saints, and plus I'm taking the points. If we got money, since I'm a fan, I'm gonna say the Eagles just for the purpose of to have fun. Okay.
Okay. All right. We got the Texans and the Vikings.
Well, you didn't pick. You didn't pick Richard. You didn't pick.
Oh, you know I'm going to pick the Saints. Come on, man.
Okay, I have to make sure.
I got the Saints because I saw what they did to my Cowboys, and I gotta say, Saints look like they're for real. They really do. That doesn't look like a fluke. You know what I mean? So they look like they're for real. So
until they don't, that's all I want to say.
Exactly. It's a long season. Got Texans at Vikings.
I got the Texans. Let me tell you, I like C.J. Stroud. I really like that kid. I like what he's doing, and I like him his demeanor off the field and the way he carries himself. Yeah. And let me tell you, one of the worst wide receivers we had to play against was Tank Dell. Man, I wish we could have kidnapped that dude before we played against him, because he's a little bitty guy, but he's a phenomenal wide receiver, and he is fast.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna follow suit on that. I'm gonna take the Texans also. I'm Texans all year, by the way.
Are you really?
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, Texans all year until they play the Eagles.
I'm gonna tell you,
which I don't think they do.
They don't play the Eagles. They don't play the Eagles. But I'm gonna go against the grain here. I'm gonna pick the Vikings, and the reason being is I think the Vikings have a little something going over there. But and you talk about Tank Dell, man. Justin Jefferson is a beast.
Yeah, he is from LSU. Yeah.
Yes, he's a beast. But I have to say, I think a little early season adversity is good for a team, and I think the Texans they could use a little early season adversity, and I hope that's the case because my Cowboys are certainly having a lot of that early season adversity right now themselves. So I'm gonna take the Vikings. Last game for the NFL is gonna be Ravens at Cowboys.
Got to ride with the Cowboys.
I'm taking the Ravens all day. Time's over. I don't even need a spread on that one. I'm taking them regardless. I'm taking them.
Yeah, Ravens are 0-2. Cowboys 1-1. Cowboys at home, they need a bounce back. There's no better way to get a bounce back than against a Super Bowl contender. Even though they're 0-2, I'm gonna go Cowboys. Cowboys, and then we'll shift gears to a little bit of NCAA. I know we said we didn't follow it, but number 11 USC at Michigan. Michigan's number 18 USC. I'm gonna go Michigan as well.
Yeah,
I'm going USC all day.
All day. Everything's all day with you, man.
All day.
I think you're trying to spite us here.
No. It's just what they're doing. Where are they playing at? Are they playing in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, they're playing in Ann Arbor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still gonna take USC. They travel well. Again, what they're doing right now, they look good. They look real good.
Okay. Number 12 Utah at number 14 Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Oh man, What is Utah's record, real quick?
Utah's record, I believe they're 3-0, I think.
Yeah, I'm taking Utah, believe it or not. Because you're talking about a state team. Those state teams don't do too well. Now, if you would have said Oklahoma, I'm taking Oklahoma. But you said Oklahoma State. I'm gonna try my chances. I'm gonna go with Utah.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has a local kid on a wide receiver too. That's another reason why I like Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Rashad Owen.
Yeah, I'm going Oklahoma. I'm going to Oklahoma State as well.
Okay, must be a Cowboys thing.
And our last game of the week is number 6 Tennessee at number 15 Oklahoma.
No, that's
Oklahoma.
Easy. Yeah, Oklahoma.
Man, have y'all watched Tennessee? Tennessee looks tough, man. They look like they're going back to that old school 1990s Peyton Manning Tennessee. So I'm going to go against the grain. Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee.
And there you go.
Yeah, there you go. There's our picks. Mr. Harris, I hope that we can have you on again, maybe be a regular contributor for us and all that. Man, we really appreciate the conversation today. This was wonderful. And I just want to say it was a pleasure to watch your son play at UTSA, the toughness that he exhibited and the leadership on and off the field. And like I said, his smile is contagious.
Yeah. I appreciate the invite. And like I told Eric, I know sometimes that parents want to hear from a female's perspective. So one day maybe you can have my wife on here so she can talk about, being a mama of a football player.
Yeah,
And,
Absolutely.
so,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Again,
Absolutely.
one last thing before we get out of here. One of the things, when you talk about adversity with Frank, one of the things that people don't realize was every time Frank came back from an injury, he won that starting QB job, and he had some pretty stiff competition. Lowell Narcisse, very good quarterback. He came from Louisiana. He played at LSU, and then we wound up getting him here. And Frank and him battled. He was probably a number 5 in the nation when he came out of high school, or one in the top 5, but as quarterbacks that was. And then we had Josh Atkins that came from New Mexico State, and he came over here. And the good thing about that competition was that Josh and Frank are really, really good friends. They were before then, and then they remained friends throughout the whole ordeal. And and that was a really, really tough competition. And Frank won that out again, coming back from injury, and it wasn't easy for him, and mentally or physically, but he got it done. So we had another guy, Allen Edwards. He was a number one. He was a top prospect from Florida. We had another guy, DJ. I forget his last name. He played at Auburn, and again, Frank wound up through all that adversity, wound up, getting the starting job.
I could say this. I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever question Frank Harris's grit and toughness. I will say that. I saw him. I'll tell you what. There was times when our offensive line wasn't always the best, and I saw him stand in the pocket or get out of the pocket and take a hit while delivering a tough pass. That was something we saw every Saturday from him. So he's got my respect, and proud to call him a road runner for sure.
And he never threw players under the bus. Publicly, he never threw them under the bus. Privately between him and I, we would talk about different, but he never threw his teammate, his coaches underneath the bus. He never did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here, Eric. You got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Harris. Again, that just is a testament of what I'm trying to bring to the city. Let parents and others know how you raised Frank and your kids. That's just a testament right there of how you raised him in relation to making sure you're respectful. People don't understand the importance of the job that you held. You were a public servant. And your job alone was selfless to the community and to the Bear County. So again, that right there passed off to your son, and that's why he was such a great steward. And I become a good steward, a great steward to the UTSA program. And again, that's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to bring to the city to show, like, hey man, we do have great parents and we do have great kids in our community, and just give you your word and give you your flowers and say, hey, I wasn't perfect. But I did something. That was, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we let you know that. And if you want to come on anytime, you let us know. Same thing for your wife. You want to, come on next weekend, we can definitely make it happen to where mom can give her point of view and say, hey, yeah, from mom's perspective, these are some of the things that we saw when we did. So you're definitely welcome. The platform of Super Sports Media is at your feet, and whatever you need from us, you let us know.
Okay. And I always try to tell parents that sports is the hook to lure the kid in. Once you get them in, then that's when you get to mold them. I think too many of these guys get caught up in wins and losses and who's got the best record and all that kind of stuff. You got an opportunity to make a difference in these kids' lives forever. And when I see kids to this day and they come and hug me and call me coach, then I know it wasn't just about winning and losing.
Definitely.
Well, go ahead and sign us off, Richard.
All right.
All
Hey,
right.
well, just like the rest of San Antonio and UTSA fans, I'm looking forward to also seeing the next chapter of Frank's life, which who knows where it's going to take him. We're looking forward to it. And birds up. And let me tell you, like we sign off every week, be kind to one another. It doesn't cost you all a dime. Until next time, with Eric Talley, Mr. Darrell Harris, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Playboy, you made that beat.